And welcome back to MGD 111 Photoshop. Today we're going to look at transformation tools. In Photoshop, you want to open, if you want to play along here, I have a file called Flagpole2 and one called FlagNoodle. If you could open those up, we're going to be using those. So the transformation tools basically allow us to take a section of a picture or to take a layer, and we can resize it, we can rotate it, we can bend it even, we can warp it, we can do all kinds of crazy stuff to it to make it fit in with our background surroundings and make a more realistic image out of it. For the moment, I just want to go over to the FlagNoodle, and I just want to show you the first, most basic one. And this will kind of show you one of the downfalls of this particular thing and how we can use it more effectively. The first thing you have to do is make some sort of selection. So any sort of selection tool will work, whether you're using select colors or magic wands or a combination of things. So right now I'm just going to take my rectangular marquee and just grab a section of this picture. Now that I have it highlighted, I can go to Edit, and there's several in this area: Transform, Free Transform, etc. I'm just going to go to Transform Scale. That's the first one. And when I do that, you'll notice on my marching ants here, my marquee, I get these little handles. If I grab a corner of this, I can move it around. You'll see it scales it. Now, what I wanted to point out to you here, you can start to see, if I were to do this on a single layer image, what happens is the background color shows through. It basically cuts a hole in the picture. And generally, we don't want to do that. There are some cases where that might be okay if we're just trying to transform a particular section of something that we're going to paste elsewhere. But the better use of these tools comes when we are dealing with combining some layers. So I'm going to click Cancel here. The easiest thing is just to go to a different tool. So I'm just going to click on my rectangular marquee, and it's going to ask me Apply the transformation. I'm going to click Don't Apply, and it's just going to act like nothing ever happened. Now, I know that was a little confusing. Hang with me here. I'm going to show you this again when we apply it to a layer. So what I want to do is I designed this flag here for a project for another client, and I want to put this into this flagpole picture and make it look like a real flag. So what I need to do first is select everything. So Command A, Command C, and now I'm going to click on my flagpole picture, Command V for paste. I might get a warning about different color modes. That's okay in this particular case. It's just good to know this. What's going to happen is this selection that I just put on here will be converted to whatever the background color mode was, just as long as you're aware of what mode you're working in. So now that we've pasted it, I can use the Move tool to move it around, but I can't do anything else with it really. Well, this is where the transformation tools start to come in handy. Now again, we have to make a selection to work with. So we need to make sure in our layers, I want to transform the flag layer, so I got to make sure I'm on layer 1, which I am, and I'm going to make a selection. Now this is kind of interesting. I don't have to precisely grab this particular selection because it's only going to transform the pixels that are visible in this layer. I could select the entire window if I wanted to, but then my cropping marks and all that would be way out to the side here. So as long as you've got everything within that layer selected, you're in good shape. So now I can go back to Edit, Transform, Scale. And I can grab this corner. And now you'll notice it's not cutting a hole in the picture, but it's allowing this to be resized. Now you'll notice if I'm just grabbing this corner, I'm really changing the proportions on it considerably. And I don't want to do that necessarily. So what I need to do is, if I hit Command Z, it's going to undo those particular, at least the last one that you did. The transform tool is kind of weird because there's multiple steps within a step. It shows up in your history here. So I'm going to undo this. I'm going to click on my rectangle marquee, Don't Apply, and go back to my regular state. Here's a couple of things that we need to know that's going to make this a little bit easier. If I hold down, I've got my selection here. I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, Scale. If I hold down the Shift key and grab a corner, you'll notice it scales it in proportion. So as long as you haven't messed up the proportions already, you're able to do that. It doesn't work with the sides for some reason. You can't do that if you grab a side handle. It only works with the corners. But this is where the scale tool really starts to come in handy. We're able to keep it within its parameters here. So I'm going to click Return here, which applies the transformation. Now you'll notice the selection has magically just gone ahead and shrunk a little bit to where now it's just covering the flag itself. This is fine. We used to have a little bit of extra around it, so this is cool. Couple more things I want to show you here. We can also, while we're in the middle of scaling it, if we just move our cursor to the middle here, we can also move it too. So it allows us to scale it and move it at the same time. So if we go back to File, or I'm sorry, Edit, Transform, Scale. Again, if we do this without any modifier keys, we can scale it randomly. But if we hold down the Shift key, we scale it proportionally. If I hold down the Option key, what it does is it keeps the center of the picture and it tries to scale it up and down whichever direction I'm moving here. It's kind of a confusing thing to see, but I'm just moving one handle and all the others are mirroring that. I don't find that one particularly useful, but there it is if you need it. But the Shift key is the one you want to use the most. So I'm actually going to hit OK here. I'm going to go back in my history and just go back to the point where I had pasted this image. And we're going to start with this state in the next lesson. Some more transformations coming up.